The night was quiet, but it didn't last. The digital clock on Chief's nightstand blinked 2:41 a.m. when his phone erupted with a ringtone that sliced through the stillness. His body ached from hours under the hood of a stubborn Chevrolet, a machine that refused to obey him, and yet, his mind hadn't fully left the dream of roaring engines and quarter-mile strips. For a moment, he considered letting it ring. Another racer with a tow truck problem, a late-night debt call, nothing that couldn't wait until sunrise. But the name that lit up the screen stopped him cold: Daddy Dave. Dave never called at this hour unless something catastrophic had gone wrong. Chief's hand moved on autopilot, swiping to answer before his conscious mind could catch up. "Chief," Dave's voice came through the line. And it was wrong. Hollow. Trembling beneath a controlled surface. A man on the edge of something irreversible. "I need you to listen, and I need you not to interrupt until I'm finished. Can you do that?" Chief swung his legs over the bed, bare feet hitting the cold floor. Every nerve in his body went on alert. He'd known Dave for over 2 decades, watched him climb out of wrecked cars, weather divorces, bankruptcies, heartbreaks, but he'd never heard this tone before. Resignation and barely contained fury, all at once. "I found something," Dave said. "Something I can't unknow. And once I share it, there's no putting it back in the box. The crew, the show, the streets, the brotherhood, everything we've built, it's about to be tested. And I'm not sure we'll survive it." Chief's mouth went dry. His mind ran through the possibilities: federal investigations, undercover operations, informants, deaths that weren't accidents. He tightened his grip on the phone. "Where are you?" he asked. "The farm," Dave replied. "I need you here within the hour. Bring Sean and Monza. Nobody else. Not until we figure out how deep this goes. If the wrong person finds out, we're all in danger." Daddy Dave wasn't just a street racer, he was a force of nature. Oklahoma City's underground racing scene had forged him in fire. From beat-up cars to veteran racers who should have crushed him, Dave survived, thrived, and became legendary. He had a calculated aggression, a near-supernatural instinct, and the ability to read a track in the split second before the light turned green. The streets of early 2000s Oklahoma City demanded respect, and Dave earned it, mile by mile. When he built his first serious race car from salvaged parts and borrowed money, he poured nights into perfecting it until it responded like an extension of his own body. When he hit the streets and started winning, people took notice. Chief and Dave became unstoppable. Precision met instinct. Strategy met fearlessness. Together, they formed the 405 crew, a brotherhood bonded by speed, loyalty, and unbreakable codes. But legend was never without cost. Dave survived crashes that should have ended careers, faced months of therapy, and battled the shadow of mortality at 200 miles per hour. Through it all, he remained the unshakable warrior, the anchor for the crew, but at what personal cost? The first cracks appeared quietly. Monza noticed during a routine carburetor talk in December 2024, Dave was distracted, clipped, absent in a way that didn't feel like him. At crew meetings, he drifted off. His late-night disappearances became more frequent. Calls behind closed doors, sudden trips, whispered conversations. Chief noticed every detail, catalogued every odd moment. This wasn't stress. This was something bigger, gnawing at Dave from the inside. Every attempt to talk, to get him to open up, failed. Dave built walls so carefully they were almost invisible. The crew's frustration grew. Speculation ran rampant. Health? Personal issues? The truth, Dave realized, was far darker than any imagined problem. The garage sat on the outskirts of Oklahoma City, nondescript, metal walls glowing dimly under the pre-dawn light. It had once been a small manufacturing building, now repurposed to house the tools, cars, and chaos that defined their lives. But this morning, it looked different, stripped bare, as if the space itself sensed the weight of what was about to unfold. Chief and Monza arrived within minutes of each other, engines still warm, tires crunching gravel under freezing January air. Breath formed clouds in the darkness. Dave was already inside, waiting. His posture stiff, hands trembling slightly, eyes tired but determined. The garage was empty except for a folding table at its center. Spread across it were photographs, financial records, computer printouts, handwritten notes, and highlighted documents, meticulously organized. The sheer volume hinted at weeks, maybe months, of private investigation. Chief stepped forward, stomach twisting. The papers told a story before a word was spoken, racing data that didn't match official records, photos of crew members meeting strangers behind restaurants, bank statements with suspicious deposits, cryptic text messages about payments, races, and predetermined outcomes. This, Dave said, voice steady but trembling slightly, started when I noticed timing irregularities last summer. Fractions of a second didn't add up. I thought it was a glitch, human error. But patterns emerged. Patterns that couldn't be coincidence. Sean picked up a photo, studying it in silence. His face went pale. It showed a crew member, someone they trusted like family, meeting an unknown man from a rival crew. Out of the public eye, hidden in the shadows. This goes back at least 2 years, Dave continued, moving to stand like a prosecutor. Maybe longer. Someone in our crew has been feeding information to outsiders. Sharing our cars, strategies, and plans before races. But it's worse, they've been sabotaging us. Races thrown deliberately. Mechanical failures engineered to hit at critical moments. Even incidents we thought were accidents, those might have been orchestrated. Monza's voice caught, hollow and trembling. You're telling us, some of our crashes, our losses, they weren't luck. They weren't mistakes. Dave nodded, slowly. The weight of that gesture pressed down like a physical force. Someone we trusted. Someone we called family. Has been betraying us, for money. Chief's fists clenched at his sides. Each word hit like a hammer. How many close calls? How many victories stolen? How many nights consoling each other after bad luck, never knowing the real enemy was inside? Sean's voice broke the silence. Who is it? Dave reached into his jacket and pulled a single sheet of paper, placing it face down on the table. Silence fell, thick and suffocating. Once you know who this is, Dave said, there's no turning back. Confrontations. Legal issues. Media. Fallout. Everyone will have to pick a side, and not all sides will be obvious. He flipped the paper. The name hit them like a sledgehammer. Not a peripheral member. Not a newcomer. Someone central, someone they trusted above all else. Betrayal cut deeper than any crash ever could. By sunrise, the storm Dave unleashed in that garage rippled through the 405 crew. Details were scarce, but suspicion spread faster than wildfire. Allegiances shifted, old friendships strained. Confrontations flared. The first erupted at Murder Nova's shop. Crew members arrived under the pretense of working on cars, but anger simmered beneath. The accused traitor wasn't present. Dave tried to contain the situation, insisting they wait until a plan was made, but absence only fueled suspicion. Who gave you the right to play detective? Shouted one member. You gathered evidence behind our backs. Chief cut through the chaos. Dave didn't act recklessly. This isn't rumor. This is documented. This is reality. It's serious, cost races, money, and lives. Still, the crew split. Some supported Dave immediately, trusting him to protect the crew's integrity. Others saw him as a destroyer, breaking sacred trust by exposing betrayal with cold evidence. Allies of the accused pushed back, painting Dave as paranoid or vengeful. Sean found himself trapped. He'd seen the proof. He knew ignoring it required willful blindness, but loyalty to the accused ran deep. Reconciling truth with trust felt impossible. Then the evidence leaked. Within 48 hours, the story tore through the underground racing world. Past races were questioned. Events cancelled. Reputation shattered. Murder Nova tried mediation, but every attempt degenerated into shouting, old grudges resurfacing, alliances fractured. The brotherhood that once defined them felt like a fragile illusion. And Dave, he carried the weight alone. Every moment, every sleepless night, every calculation in his mind, he'd known peace built on lies. The rain fell in sheets over Oklahoma City, freezing and relentless, turning streets into slick mirrors of black ice. Under normal circumstances, no sane driver would race in these conditions. Yet, for the underground crews, speed was life, and the law of the streets rarely paused for weather. Inside his garage, Dave sat alone, surrounded by the tools, cars, and machines that had defined his life. A phone connected him to a lawyer specializing in fraud and conspiracy cases. The conversation was clinical, detached, far removed from the emotional devastation consuming him. If you move forward formally, the lawyer warned, you need to understand the fallout. Law enforcement will intervene. Records will be subpoenaed. People uninvolved may face scrutiny if their names appear in any documents. This is bigger than just a racing crew, it's a criminal investigation waiting to happen. Dave closed his eyes, letting the weight settle across his shoulders. He hadn't intended to become a whistleblower. He hadn't sought to unravel friendships, careers, or reputations. Yet, here he was. At a crossroads where every choice spelled destruction in one form or another. The alternative, the street justice route, was brutal but familiar. Confront the traitor directly. Impose consequences internally. Protect the crew's public image. But it risked violence and left no legal record to deter future betrayals. Both roads were dangerous. Both were necessary. Chief arrived without knocking. 2 decades of friendship earned that privilege. He didn't ask questions. He pulled up a stool, knowing some decisions needed silence more than advice. For 20 minutes, they sat, listening to rain hammer the roof, watching the gray light filter through grimy windows. I keep thinking about all the times I trusted my gut, Dave said finally, voice raw from sleepless nights. I built a reputation on reading races in real time, knowing when to push, when to back off. And I completely missed this betrayal happening under my nose for years. What does that say about me? Chief shook his head slowly. Your instincts didn't fail. They are what made you notice the irregularities. This betrayal happened because someone became very good at hiding it, not because you stopped seeing it. Don't let it destroy your confidence. You're exceptional, and you know it. Dave's gaze fell on a photograph on the workbench. Taken 5 years earlier, it showed the crew celebrating a hard-won victory. Arms around shoulders, faces split with genuine smiles. The accused traitor stood near the center, looking like family, like they'd never dream of undermining the people who had trusted them with everything. Dave's decision was clear. I'm moving forward, he said, each word heavy with consequence. I'm turning everything over to the authorities. Let the investigation go wherever it leads. If some of our crew suffers for things they didn't do directly, or if the show gets cancelled, or if people call me the villain, so be it. The alternative, ignoring it, would be a betrayal far worse than exposing the truth. 3 days later, the formal complaint was filed. Federal agents began interviewing crew members, subpoenaing financial records, and reviewing race footage with forensic precision. The story exploded in racing media, then mainstream outlets. Cameras that once documented victories now captured a racing family tearing itself apart. The accused traitor was arrested, facing charges of fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering. The legal terms sounded surreal in the underground racing world, but reflected the severity of the betrayal. Their defense team went on the offensive, painting Dave as jealous and vindictive. Some crew members backed this narrative, questioning Dave's motives in public interviews. But others rallied behind him. Monza organized a show of solidarity, gathering drivers from multiple crews to support Dave's stand against internal corruption. Murder Nova defended Dave's integrity on media platforms, insisting some truths were too important to remain buried, no matter how painful. Even initially skeptical crew members began to realize the betrayal's scope. The evidence was undeniable. The underground racing world would never return to its former innocence. Trust had been shattered. The aftermath left scars that couldn't be healed. The betrayal had fractured relationships built over decades. Yet, through the chaos, something unexpected emerged, a harsher, more honest sense of community. One that demanded accountability while accepting imperfection. Daddy Dave would carry the weight for the rest of his life. But he would know this, in the hardest moment of his racing career, he chose truth over comfort, accountability over loyalty, and courage over convenience. The burden remained heavy, but it was now bearable, anchored in the knowledge that some truths were too important to ignore. By the time the morning sun broke over Oklahoma City, the once unified 405 crew had begun to fracture. Rumors traveled faster than the engines that had built their reputation. Whispers of betrayal and suspicion crept into every garage, every shop, every back alley where racers congregated. At Murder Nova's shop, tension boiled over. Crew members arrived under the guise of routine work, but it was obvious they wanted answers. Anger simmered beneath every word, every glance. The accused traitor wasn't there, and the absence only fueled suspicion. "Who gave you the right to play detective?" one member shouted. "You investigated us behind our backs, collected evidence, and now you throw it at us like a bomb." Chief stepped forward, his voice slicing through the chaos. "Dave didn't act recklessly. This is documented. This is reality. It's serious, it's about lives, races, and money. Ignoring it would have been worse." Some sided immediately with Dave, recognizing the courage it took to uncover a betrayal so deeply embedded. Others saw him as a destroyer, the man who shattered the illusion of unity and trust. Allies of the accused spun a counter-narrative, claiming Dave had been compromised by jealousy or paranoia. Sean felt caught in the middle. He had seen the evidence firsthand. Ignoring it meant betraying truth, yet loyalty to the accused ran deep. Reconciling hard proof with lived loyalty seemed impossible. Within 48 hours, the news had spread beyond Oklahoma City. Crews in other cities questioned past races, revisited incidents, and speculated wildly. Events were cancelled. Sponsors hesitated. The reputation the 405 crew had built over years began to crumble under suspicion. Murder Nova attempted to mediate, arranging meetings to restore unity. But each session devolved into shouting matches. Old grudges resurfaced, and unrelated conflicts were weaponized. Trust, once the foundation of the Brotherhood, now seemed fragile, almost imaginary. Dave bore the emotional brunt. His act of revealing the truth, necessary though it was, painted him as both hero and pariah. Some in the crew resented him for breaking secrecy. Others quietly admired him for his courage. The isolation of carrying that truth weighed on him daily, grinding down his mental resilience. Even minor interactions felt like battlefield negotiations. Conversations with longtime friends became exercises in strategy, carefully choosing words to avoid escalation. Each encounter reminded Dave that the betrayal wasn't just about one traitor, it was about the fragile balance of loyalty and honesty that kept the underground racing world functioning. The accused traitor's allies rallied. They questioned every decision Dave had made, scrutinized his motives, and painted the investigation as personal vendetta. Some crew members publicly declared support for the accused, shaking hands with former friends while silently judging Dave. Sean watched in disbelief as long-time relationships unraveled. Racing partners he trusted with his life now hesitated at his side. Conversations once filled with shared laughter and strategy became tense, cautious exchanges. The sense of family, the brotherhood that had defined the crew, was cracking, splintering under the weight of truth. Murder Nova attempted to maintain calm. "We've survived crashes, injuries, near-death moments," he reminded them. "We can survive this too, but only if we confront it, not bury it." Yet, the confrontation was impossible to choreograph. Fear, anger, and betrayal mingled, leaving no clear path forward. Every member had to choose, side with the truth, side with loyalty, or step back entirely. Each choice carried consequences. Some would lose friendships. Others would lose trust. And some would lose both. In the aftermath, the crew's public image faltered. Sponsors hesitated. Media outlets scrutinized every decision. The underground racing community buzzed with gossip, speculation, and fear. The world they had built, a world of speed, trust, and loyalty, was permanently altered. But from the wreckage, a new, harder truth emerged. One that acknowledged human imperfection while demanding accountability. Trust, once blind and unquestioned, would now be earned and verified. Brotherhood would no longer be assumed, it would be tested constantly, tempered by truth. Dave, scarred but resolute, understood this. His revelation had destroyed the old illusion, but it had also created a chance for real, lasting integrity, a community built not on appearances, but on accountability. He had shattered a beautiful lie, but in doing so, had also forged a path forward, one defined by courage, honesty, and unflinching confrontation of betrayal. Federal agents began interviews, subpoenas, and forensic analyses. Every piece of evidence Dave had uncovered, the bank statements, the photos, the coded messages, was now being scrutinized for legal action. For the accused traitor, the stakes escalated quickly. Fraud. Conspiracy. Racketeering. Words that sounded surreal in the underground racing world, yet carried real legal weight, threatening careers, freedom, and reputations. Their defense lawyers went on the offensive, casting Dave as jealous, vindictive, and unstable. Some crew members publicly echoed this narrative, questioning Dave's motives in interviews. Yet, a counterforce emerged. Monza organized solidarity rallies, gathering drivers from multiple crews to publicly support Dave's commitment to truth and accountability. Murder Nova, ever the voice of reason, reminded everyone, we've faced life-and-death situations on the track. This is no different. Courage isn't easy, but it's necessary. The pressure wasn't just public, it was personal. Dave felt the weight of judgment from the very people he had trusted most. His nights became sleepless, haunted by every decision, every confrontation, every whispered accusation. Sean wrestled with loyalty and evidence. He had trained, raced, and survived with the accused traitor for years. Now, proof of betrayal collided violently with the bonds of friendship. Each decision felt like walking a tightrope over a chasm of mistrust and anger. Even Chief, normally composed, felt the strain. Watching decades of brotherhood crumble under the weight of betrayal forced him to confront uncomfortable truths. Trust is fragile, and loyalty is tested in fire. The betrayal created factions within the crew. Some rallied behind Dave, valuing accountability over blind loyalty. Others defended the traitor, framing Dave as a disruptor. Meetings meant to restore unity instead became battlegrounds of emotion, accusation, and recrimination. Rumors spread faster than facts. Every past race was re-examined. Mechanical failures, accidents, and unexpected losses were no longer seen as part of the sport, they were now potential acts of sabotage. Every decision, every trust placed in a crew member, was questioned. Yet, amidst the chaos, a new pattern emerged. Those who had supported Dave quietly recognized the importance of confronting truth, even at immense personal cost. A harsher, more honest version of the crew was forming, one built not on assumed loyalty, but on verified accountability. Through it all, Dave remained resolute. He had chosen truth over comfort, and in doing so, had made enemies and allies alike. The road ahead was uncertain, legal battles, broken friendships, and a racing world forever changed. But he understood this, the cost of ignoring betrayal was far greater than the pain of confronting it. Every sleepless night, every tense meeting, every public scrutiny was a price he was willing to pay. Because some truths were too important to bury. Dave carried the scars of the investigation, the fractured crew, and the public fallout. Yet, he also carried a deeper understanding. Courage is measured not by victories on the track, but by the willingness to confront the hardest truths of it. Days turned into weeks, and the tension within the 405 crew reached a boiling point. Every conversation carried weight. Every glance was measured. The betrayal had transformed the crew from a family bound by trust into a fragile alliance held together by necessity and fear. The final confrontation was inevitable. Dave insisted it occur in a controlled environment, away from cameras and social media, to avoid the chaos from spiraling further. The accused traitor was summoned, flanked by legal counsel, and brought face to face with the evidence that had toppled reputations and torn friendships apart. The garage, once a place of camaraderie and shared victories, now felt like a courtroom. Fluorescent lights flickered, casting long shadows over faces lined with anger, confusion, and fear. Dave stood at the center, calm but resolute. Chief flanked him, a silent pillar of support, while Sean and Monza watched, tension coiling in every muscle. "You know why you're here," Dave said, voice steady but heavy. "We trusted you. We built a family. And you betrayed that trust for money. For advantage. For your own gain. This stops now." The accused attempted denial, protests of misunderstanding, and attempts to shift blame. But Dave and the evidence were relentless. Photographs, bank statements, text messages,